Last week, I was so inspired studying and learning an old Jewish song. I was tempted to call the musicians to help me accompany. And if you may allow me this afternoon, I would like to share the song with you. Allow me just to read the song to you and reflect the message that God has given me as I read the song. So I'm talking about Psalm 120. Psalms, the book of Psalms, are actually compilations of songs that the Israelites, the Jewish people in the Old Testament, were using and singing, especially when they go to the temple, when they march towards Jerusalem in their pilgrims, or even coming out of the temple, they would sing a compilation of song that can be found in Psalms. This is the beginning of the Song of Ascents. And I'm warning you, from the outset of my message, I'm warning you that this is not a happy song. It is kind of a sad song. It's a song about brokenheartedness. It's a song of disgust. It's a song of frustration. It started with a sad note and ends with a sad note. But this is a very honest song, necessary song for each and every one of us to really hear and understand and learn from. So if you may allow me, I will read you Psalm 120. So if you're taking notes, I would like to give a title to this song or to this conversation that I have with you. It's Bad Infections. I'm sure infection is one of the common human experiences that we share. Flu, virus. I know some of you are just recovered from virus or from flu, stomach flu. Mine is a usual throat infection. I would see myself in the doctor because my throat is swollen. If you have weak immune system, you will be susceptible to viruses and bacteria. And that's why they would advise us, take some precautions, take vitamin C, avoid crowded area, wash your hands before eating, and so on and so forth. And then, in spite of all these reminders, we still find ourselves forgetting and being affected or even infected by viruses. So if there's one very important lesson that I want you to take home or to take with you today in this message is this. Do not allow anything that affects you infect you. This is the one overarching lesson or truth that I want you to remember in every turn, in every single line, in every verse. Do not allow anything that affects you infect you. Because I do believe we live in a world, in a fallen world, we're surrounded with bacteria and viruses. No matter how protective we are surrounded with bacteria, dirt, and so on and so forth. As long as those things only affect us externally, and we do not allow them to infect us internally, I think we're safe. Because what I'm gonna share with you today is more than the infection that we are encountering in our lives, in the physical aspect of our lives. I'm talking about a different kind of infection today. Infections that can pollute our mind, damage our emotions, and even to the point of destroying our character. I'm talking about words. I'm talking about thoughts. I'm talking about stories and events that we all face in this life called a pilgrimage of our lives, that we face hostility and difficulties. As long as these things only affect us externally, troubled us, as long as we do not allow these things to infect us and influence us from the inside out, I think we're okay. You would hear stories. People would malign you or lie about you, misrepresent you in some ways. Maybe you receive an SMS from the Philippines and you are so downhearted, broken, simply because the text is not true. A story is being spread out somewhere in your life and you are so affected by it. Or maybe you find yourself surrounded by people who are accustomed to lying or telling green jokes. If we surround ourselves with people who are talking about foolishness, immorality, and so on and so forth, if we are not careful, those things affect us and will eventually infect us. That's why we have a saying, tell me who your friends are, and I'll tell you who you are. Because somehow we believe that if you stay longer with those company of people, it will somehow infect us or affect us. Although it's not an absolute truth. Because in the midst of fallen world, in the midst of hostility and difficulties, in the midst of life, we can keep ourselves pure and uncontaminated. But if we are not careful, if we keep on listening on stories and bad stories and lies, sooner or later, those stories becomes our stories. We start to tell the same stories. Sooner or later, we find ourselves lying and deceiving and scheming. Now, allow me to navigate through Psalm 120, and I warned you a while ago that this song is a sad song. Started with a sad note and ends with a sad note. But this song is an honest song. A song of a person who is frustrated, disappointed with these situations that motivated him to push forward and join the pilgrimage going to Jerusalem, because when he is disappointed with the situations, he started to seek God's wholeness. He started to seek the peace that God can only offer in his life. When we are dissatisfied with what's going on in the world, when we are not contented with our situation, we start to seek for what God has promised to us. Because I've realized when we are contented and comfortable with our situation, we do not seek for what God has prepared for us. Maybe somehow God would allow us to have those experiences so that we seek for the wholeness, for the peace, or the shalom that God has promised for us. And this is the very story of this psalm. This Jewish writer was so devastated, brokenhearted, that he joined the pilgrimage going to Jerusalem because he's saying in his heart, in the presence of Yahweh, in the presence of God, I will have peace, I will hear, I will be healed, I will be comforted. Verse 1, the writer said at the outset, I call on the Lord in my distress, and He answers me. This verse combines the past and the present, which can also be translated, I cried unto the Lord, and He answered me. He was talking about a previous experience that he found himself in a difficult situation, and he came before the Lord, and he called upon the Lord, and the Lord answered him. And this time again, he is going to do it because he is confident that the God who answered him will always answer him in times of distress. Are you in distress? Are you in a difficult situation? Prayer is an option. Calling another person is another option. Where do we turn to in times of difficult situation, in times of lies and slanders and misrepresentation? This psalmist is telling us, call upon the Lord in times of distress. Call on Him. Because sometimes we tend to call on people, and the best friend, your close friend that you call on to, sometimes he's busy and he will not respond to your SMS or your Facebook message, and you find yourself so alone and so lonely, and even you start to hate your friend because you were not there when I needed you the most. And sometimes we don't find that comfort that we're looking for, and we still find ourselves disappointed and frustrated. This psalmist is telling us, when you are in distress, call on the Lord, because He will answer you. Now, when we say distress, what do we mean? I found in the dictionary it says distress means being extremely anxious. That's the time where you cannot sleep, you cannot eat. When you hear some bad stories, lies about you, it affects you, no? I can see your faces, and you're maybe still remembering the faces of the people who spread lies about you, and the pain, the anger is still there, and you can still feel it. But you opted, like this psalmist, instead of calling another person, you call upon the name of the Lord, because in times of distress, He answers your prayers. I call upon the Lord, and He answers me. What causes your distress? What causes the distress of this psalmist? Save me, O Lord, from lying lips and from deceitful tongues. Now, when I read that, I said, oh, how desperate this person. He opted not to retaliate. He had all the means, he had all the choice to retaliate. Di ba? Tayo may ganun eh. If you heard someone na, uy, alam mo ba, sabi ni ganyan, ganyan ka daw. The tendency you feel angry, isn't it? I think it's just but normal to feel angry because we're human. But we have an option whether we pour that anger to people or we just lift that anger to God and say, save me, O Lord. A cry of deliverance. I think he had the choice to retaliate. Some of us probably retaliated and we say to our hearts, talaga, sinabi niya yan, makikita niya pag nagkita kami bukas. Diba? Maybe in your office, you find yourselves, here you are, working, you're honestly working, and your colleagues would spread lies about you. And you feel so bad, especially when you help that person. You were the one who introduced that person to be employed in that same company, and you are being put in a difficult situation, and you feel like, Lord, what would I do? Angry? Retaliate? But you know, this man, this Jewish person, he cried unto the Lord, and he said, Lord, save me from lying lips and from deceitful tongues. Deliver me. Now, I like the translation of Eugene Peterson. Eugene Peterson is a pastor, an American pastor, who translated the Bible into a modern language called the Message. I'm sure some of you are familiar. He translated this verse this way. He said, deliver me from the liars, God. They smile so sweetly, but lie through their teeth. I can feel the frustration of this person. He trusted his fellow men, and he found himself hurting. And I think all of us can relate to this. One way or another, we were all victim of lies, gossip, and slander. He was so downhearted. He was broken. And the sad reality that happens to all people, unfortunately, the sad thing is, this happens in church. So allow me just to speak to us as a congregation. If you're visiting us for the first time, I'm sorry, this church is not perfect. We're still human beings. And we are being changed as we go along. I think it's a common struggle of people, whether we are believer or not. But one of the saddest things is that when things happen, lying, slander happens in church, God is warning us, and this should not even be mentioned among us. But that's not the reality. The reality is that even though we are followers of Jesus, there are people who are not careful. And it's sad when we come before the Lord and when we smile at each other in our koinonia on Sunday, but we know in our hearts those smiles are only sweet, but we lie through our teeth. That's the sad reality. One of the bitter experiences of life is for us to become victim of lies and misrepresentations. One of the things that really pain us, we observe those who are lying and slandering, and they seem to be more influential than you. That people tend to believe them, and here you are, you find yourself alone, and you only trust God. Lord, you know the truth. At nanggigigil ka, you're gnashing with your teeth, and you want to retaliate, but you know, Lord, it will not only do good, it will only do harm. And the worst thing is when you observe people who are in the habit of lying and gossiping and slandering and misrepresenting people, as if they are prospering in their lives, they gain more friends. You know why? Because things that affects you can infect you if you're not careful. Has someone called you and told you a story and you tend to believe that story without verifying the other side of the story? We are all victim of that. That's the saddest thing. Because if we allow things that affect us, infect us, then we start to believe the lie, and we start to be lying as well all around, spreading rumors that are not true in fairness of the other party. You know, lips are soft, but it can be very sharp once we use it inappropriately. My sports is ping pong, but I wonder, some people, their sports is lying. They want to exercise their tongue. What's your sports? Lying. Pastor, I cannot control. I have to exercise my tongue. It's sad, no? I hope that's not our sports. Marami naman po, bowling, soccer, basketball, or badminton. But a lying lips, they need to exercise regularly their tongue. And we have to watch out, brethren. We could be the victim, or we could be the one victimizing people. We have to be very careful. I think all lying lips and deceitful tongues deserve to be touched by a burning coal and a hot iron. I remember Isaiah, when their king died, chapter 6 of Isaiah, he went to the temple. When the whole Israel were in turmoil because their king died, Isaiah went to the temple and prayed and was seeking for guidance from God. And he saw the vision that God was seated on the throne, high and lifted up, as if God is telling Isaiah, don't worry, Isaiah, I'm still in control. And you know the reaction of Isaiah? He said, woe to me, I am a man of unclean lips, and I live among people of unclean lips. And after that verse, he saw an angel was flying and with a thong, and got some live coal, and that coal touched his lips, and the angel said, behold, I am healing you from that lying lips. I wonder if God would send angels to rescue you with burning coals, with thongs, and He would touch our lips because we need to be delivered. That's one of the bitter things to become a victim. But the worst is that we are the ones spreading the lies. Charles Spurgeon, a British preacher, once wrote, a lie can go around the world while truth is putting its boots on. He's saying that lies can spread so fast that even before you react, it has already influenced thousands or even hundreds of people. And you find yourselves helpless. You have an option. You want to be angry? You want to retaliate? Or you can come before the Lord just like the psalmist. I cried upon the Lord and He would answer me. I think it's normal to feel that anger in our hearts. The abnormal is when, how do we express that anger? To whom do we express that anger? We all know lies can spread. Just one photo in the Facebook can reach your families back home in the province, and that photo can be misinterpreted, and stories after stories can be developed from that story, from that picture, and you find yourselves being suspected that you have an illicit relationship in Singapore. Nakatabi mo lang sa Jollibee, kumakain, hindi mo nga kaano-ano. Nung nagpa-picture ka, nakisingit lang, and here the story spread, lies would spread, and here you are. You find yourselves defenseless. And your families and relatives in the Philippines believe the story already of someone who is actually jealous about you. Charles Spurgeon continued by saying, the faculty of speech, the power and the capability of speech becomes a curse when it is degraded into a mean weapon for smiting men behind their backs. You know, so words and speeches are amoral, neither good nor bad. It is dependent on how we use it. I hope that we call ourselves followers of Christ, that we ought to be inspiring and encouraging rather than damaging hearts and feelings of people. There is an option. We can choose to be inspiring rather than an agent of destruction and demolition. Deceitful tongue. They speak so sweetly with venom, just like a snake. It's better to encounter a snake or a lion, because at the outset you know it's a snake and it's a lion, but when you encounter a deceiver, how would you know? How would you know a person who smiles at you so sweetly, but you don't know what's going on, what's going through his teeth? Look at verse 3. I already warned you, this song is a sad song, but it's a very honest song. It tells us directly to our face. And he said, what will he do to you? He was, poetically speaking, he was like talking to lying as a person. What will he do to you? Referring to God. Can you feel the disgust and the frustration of this person? Maybe this person is so frustrated. What will he do to you? He was resigning to God. He was relying on God. Lord, I know you will do something. I'm entrusting my life to you, Lord. I cried. I opted not to retaliate. I opted to cry unto you. I know you will do something about this deceitful tongue, about this lying. Lord, I know you are about to do something. A question, a cry for justice and vengeance. Because he believes that vengeance is not his. It is not his to retaliate. It is God to pour his judgment. But we don't know when. And when we are waiting and God would not change the person or even the situation, we have to wait patiently and continue to hold on to God. I said a while ago, even when you are in the truth, you know, it's sometimes, listen very carefully, sometimes it is not just important to be in the truth. You have to do the right thing as well. Sometimes we find ourselves in the truth, justifying the truth by the wrong way of doing it. To be in the truth is one thing, but to be right, to do the right thing is a necessary thing as well. And I think for this psalmist, he was saying, Lord, I cry to you. Deliver me, Lord, from these people, Lord. Deliver me from liars, oh God. Of course, God will do something, but he would entrust himself to God. He would not react, and he would not retaliate, because he knows that God is his witness. Look at the next verse. Look at the frustration. Feel the frustration of this psalmist. He will punish you. Lord, I know that nothing in this world will pass your eyes. You know which one is the truth. You know who are lying. I know, Lord, that's why I entrust this to you. I know that you will do something about this deceitful tongue. And I know, Lord, that you will punish. He will punish you with warriors' sharp arrows, with the burning coals of the butt of the broom tree. I know he will punish you. I don't know when, but God will judge. I think this is a better option than retaliating. And you leave matters to God. We all heard and somehow are familiar with stories of people who are lying and slandering people. Bumalik sa kanila. And we know that their lives are destroyed. Their names are destroyed. Relationships are destroyed. It may not happen overnight. Sometimes it's prolonged. Maybe God is giving them the chance, or maybe God is giving us the chance if we are the one lying. The truth of the matter is so much godless speech in our world, in your office, in your workplaces, around the world is full of godless speeches and words. And we must be careful of how we hear, what we hear, and how it affects us, because everything that affects us can infect us if you're not careful. It is up to us, and we find ourselves having that bad infection. And we talk among ourselves, ba't nagkaganyan dyan? Hindi naman dating ganyan, na-infect eh. Because we allow those things to come and invade our very heart that pollutes our minds, destroy our emotion, and even corrupt our character. That's why Paul warned us in his letter to the Corinthians, bad company corrupts moral. Be careful. Because if the people that you are surrounded with people who are ungodly, who are doing bad things, sooner or later, if you are not careful, their words becomes our words if we're not careful. Surely it affects us. Externally, we feel bad, but don't let these things that affect us infect us. There's so much godless speech in the world. We must not only turn our eyes away from beholding vanities, but also turn away our hearts, our ears from hearing foolishness. In the church context, minsan, di ba, we call each other. Alam niyo, minsan yung in the name of prayer, sister, pag-pray nga natin, atin-atin lang ito ha. Yung atin-atin, may ka-atin-atin din eh. Someone will call, hey, alam mo ba, atin-atin lang ito ha. In translation is, how do you translate that? This is just ours. Or this is just confidential. Just keep it among ourselves. And the other person on the other line would say, okay, we'll just keep it among ourselves. But the among ourselves, he also has his among ourselves. After you put down the phone, he calls another one, hey, this is among ourselves. Don't let anyone knows this. See, in translation, yung kaatin-atin, may kaatin-atin din. At tatawagan niya yung kaatin-atin din niya. And then we find ourselves spreading lies and deceit. How unfortunate that is if that is happening in the church or in the very people of God who calls ourselves followers of Christ. Look at verse 5. Woe to me! I'm ruined. I'm cursed. Woe to me that I dwell in Meshech. He's using now two tribes or two kinds of people, two groups of people, metaphorically speaking. Woe to me, I dwell in Meshech, that I dwell in Meshech, that I live among the tents of Kedar. I researched on the Meshech. Meshech it's a tribe, it's a group of people that came from Noah through Japhet. And this group of people lives in southern Russia, which is very, very far, thousands of miles away from Palestine, where the Jewish person may be dwelling. And the tents of Kedar are the Bedouins who were guarding the southern part of Israel in bordering of Egypt. Now, he was talking about two different groups of people. That's why it's impossible that this person really live in two separate places, which is apart. He is talking metaphorically. He was actually saying, woe to me, I dwell in Meshech. The people that I dwell are fond of violence. They are barbaric. They don't have the rules of engagement. They don't have respect on human beings. Woe to me, I dwell in Meshech, and I live among the tents of Kedar. In other words, he was saying, woe, kawawa naman ako, I am being surrounded with people who are like me, who are with unclean lips, or maybe they are violent people. Is that your situation? Are you surrounded in your office, in your workplace, or maybe we are Meshech. Maybe we are part of the tents of Kedar. Maybe we are the one violent. Maybe we are the one barbaric in our attitude. Shame on us if we call ourselves believers and followers of Jesus and we behave like those in Meshech and those that lives like the tents of Kedar. Woe to me, he said. Woe to me. And the sad and the most unfortunate thing is that he was not dwelling with the Meshech people. He was not referring to the literal tents of Kedar. What he was talking about, he lives among the Jewish people who were behaving like people who live outside the commonwealth or the covenant blessing of God. We call ourselves Jewish people and we have relationship with God. We are a covenant people of God. And why do we behave like the foreigners? Why do we behave as if we don't have relationship with God? That's the frustration of the psalmist. He said, I live. Maybe this person was involved in the misrepresentation. Somebody lied about him or her, or maybe he was slandered and he was involved in a litigation, and his enemy got some false witnesses that will spread stories, lies about him. And he felt so devastated. That motivated him to join the pilgrimage, to go to Jerusalem. And he looks forward that in the presence of God, I will hear peace and I will be comforted. We feel that way also. During the week, maybe you're troubled, bombarded by lies and so on and so forth in your offices, challenges, and you long for Sunday, I want to go to church. Because at least in church, when we worship, somehow the Lord will heal me and comfort me. That's the unfortunate thing. He was frustrated and disappointed because he was not talking about people in Meshech and in the tents of Kedar. He was talking about his own fellow men, his own fellow Jewish people who are supposed to be related to God. Jewish people who believe in the Ten Commandments will not bear false witness against his neighbor. And why are we spreading lies? We call ourselves followers of God, and why do we misbehave? Why do we behave as if we are non-believers? Wow, that's really... I told you a while ago, this song is sad. It's a sad song, but very honest and necessary for us to hear. Because we may be living like the people of Meshech. Maybe we are living like in the tents of Kedar. We are not supposed to be like them. We are people of God. We know that it is wrong to bear false witness against our brothers. Look at verse 6. Feel the frustration of this songwriter. Too long have I lived among those who hate peace. Can you feel it? He was singing this song, maybe in tears. Too long. He was addressing God. Remember, it is a prayer. I cried unto the Lord in my distress, and He answers me. Save me, O Lord, from lying lips and deceitful tongues. Woe to me that I live in Meshech and I dwell in the tents of Kedar. Too long. Sabi niya, Lord, too long have I lived among those who hate peace. Lord, I'm surrounded with people who enjoys maligning, who enjoys destroying each other's reputation, who are violent people, who enjoys exercising their tongue because their sport is lying. Too long have I lived among those who hate peace. You see the danger, you see the critical moment that what the things that affects you can infect you. That if we dwell too long in this kind of environment, sooner or later we become like them. Too long have I lived among those who hate peace. He was trying maybe to become the salt of the earth. But he was outnumbered. Too long. Look at the next verse. The last verse says, I am a man of peace. But when I speak, they are for war. You know what he's saying? He tried reconciling with people. He tried creating harmony. When he attempted to create harmony and peace, the very people did not understand. They are for war. We don't like peace. He tried his best. He did what he could to establish harmony. Maybe we are like that, diba? Here you are, trying to follow God, in spite that you are being offended and wrong. You tried to patch up things. And to your surprise, they did not receive it well. And they even said, you think you're better than us? They speak for war. How are you today, my brothers and sisters? Are you tired? Can you relate to this? Is this your team song? Pastor, pwede ko ba maging team song yan? Because ganyan na ganyan ang buhay ko ngayon, Pastor. I am in a difficult situation and nobody believes me, but I can hang on to God. I would rely on God. I opted not to retaliate. I opted to call upon the Lord in my distress. How's your journey? Can you still hold on? You know, one thing I've realized, when we are disgusted, when we are frustrated, when we know the word lies to us, when we know that the situation is not getting better, when we know that this is not what satisfies my soul, when you realize that nothing in this world can offer that satisfaction and fulfillment, that motivates us to seek God and seek the wholeness that God can promise. Only He can promise. That's why it sets him into journey. It sets him into pilgrimage because of the frustration that he experienced. When we are no longer satisfied with this life, then we start the journey of being a pilgrim that walks even though we encounter problems and difficulties along the way, but we know we are towards and journeying towards God, that someday we will reach the place that God has promised for us. I am a man of peace. But when I speak, they are for war. Lord, I cannot understand. It's one thing when you are the victim of lies, but I think it's worse if we are the one lying and spreading lies and slander. It should not even be mentioned among the followers of God. I think if we are in the habit of lying, if we are still in the habit of spreading lies, I think we have to put a stop to it. Because sooner or later, this Psalms is warning us, the sharp arrow of the warrior will hit you. The burning coals of that broom tree will hit us. It means God is just. And that lying will be punished. And I hope that will not happen to us. When we are slandered and lied about, we must leave the matter with the Lord and trust Him to work. Again, I said we have an option. We can retaliate, and we know that will not help. In our human fallenness, in our human nature, we try, akala niya siya lang marunong magsinungaling. I can also do that. And then we forget that there's another option. We can sing and cry out to God, "Save me, O Lord, from lying lips and from deceitful tongues." What a wonderful option given to us. Hang on to that. Hang on to that. Even if God will not change the situation, maybe God would not remove that person. Hang on and be patiently holding on to the Lord. Leave the matter to God and trust Him. God will vindicate. Because we have seen, all of us have seen, and heard the stories, liars will not go to heaven. They go to hell. I'm sorry. The Bible says this. They go to hell. No one will go to heaven who are liars. Why? Because you're facing the truth. You will be exposed. The truth is like a lightning in the midst of darkness. When the lightning strikes, you see the white. It enlightens, it illuminates the road, and you see it reveals the things in front of us. That's why it should not even characterize our lives, we who are called followers of Jesus. Charles Spurgeon, I really like this pastor. He said, "Silence to man and prayer to God are the best cures for the evil of slander." Keep your mouth shut. Talk to God. If you need to pour out your anger, you pour your anger to God, just like this man. "Lord, sumpain sila." Okay lang yun. Sabihin mo sa Diyos. Huwag mo sabihin sa tao. It's okay to pour out your hearts. "Lord, I'm really disgusted with this person, Lord, in church. I saw him or her smiling at me. But I know what he did." It's okay to pour out your heart before God. Don't pour out your heart to people. It's a prayer to God. He was telling God, "Lord, I am a man of peace." It's very important. Silence to man and prayer to God are the best cures. The things that affect us can infect us if we allow it. It can pollute our minds. It can destroy our reputation or our very character if we only allow them so. Once again, your takeaway, do not allow anything that affects you infect you. What do we do about this truth? Now, this is my suggestion for each and every one of us. My suggestion is let us discern all the things that we hear and watch out for bad company. Discern, is these stories? Why is this person telling me these stories? Why am I spreading these stories? Discern every word that you hear. Because garbage in can infect you. Discern, are these things affecting me or already infecting me? Discern what we hear and watch out for the things that infect us. Bad company. Remember Paul warned us, bad company corrupts moral. This is the thing that I want us all to do. You know why? Because for sure, events and things and stories in life can affect us. But it's up to us if we allow them to infect us.